supports the corporatization of the whole world economic structure that is being built up. So domination today is of these two categories, and then Shudra remains where, or rather he remains little below where he ought to have been. So Shudra is to be taken care of. And then there has been an anxiety expressed by the people that we talk in terms of all these kinds of depressed and oppressed and there is no any kind. And our 25 labor laws, legislation are getting amended into the form of 4 codes. September 1st, for the last 2 years we have been making Bharat Bandh, 11 trade unions coming together, trying to protect the workers in workplaces, not happening at all. Because these two categories of, the powerful, the power holders are dominating the whole scenario, not only in India, everywhere else. So how to build? I remember my own public interest litigation in 1983 when I went into the Supreme Court asking for regularization of 50,000 daily wage workers organized by Mr. K.S. Sharma, a great trade union leader. We were able to win the case in 86. And then Swami Agnivesh was telling that judgments come about them, nothing happens thereafter. Then that is the failure of the petitioner, not the Supreme Court. I have fought cases wherein I have taken it to the logical end. We were fighting Upendra Bakshi, Lotika Sarkar, M.C. Mehta, Justice Tarkunde. I was a very young fellow at that point of time. So I sat with Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Ramakrishna Hegde, and saw to it, along with Professor K.S. Sharma, that all these 50,000 people are regularized over a period of 6 years. And then enabling people to become good workforce. Socialization of education becomes a paramount requirement. When we fought in the Supreme Court, Unni Krishnan, abolition of capitation, it was successfully done. So whatever cases we have fought in the Supreme Court, under the banner of public interest litigation, to provide social justice in workplaces to the people, we have been extremely successful. Perhaps that kind of a academics apart, these kinds of intellectual discourses apart, I have been advocating this kind of a thing all over my life. Shahida is here. I want to repeat before I end up. That had to suffer 45 days of coma to protect my girls, 2,000 girls on my campus. I was not a vice chancellor, I was a professor of law. I was not even a professor, I was a young reader in the Department of Law. Single-handedly, all professors, all 300 faculty were terribly afraid of these hooligans ruling the roost in that university. We were able to do it at the cost of life. So we've only become proactive. Instead of indulging in this blame game of court is not doing, legislature is, what are we doing? Are we not escaping ourselves from our own primary requirement? Wherever we are in our workplaces, are we performing? We should ask ourselves. I am working. Thank you.
I now ask
Yeah, sure. Madam Professor Neeraji, chairperson of this session, the key speakers and speakers on the dais, the distinguished experts and participants who have come to attend this conference, and friends. Since the time is short, I'll be taking recourse to what I have jotted down more to cut it short, because, you know, as a teacher, if you stand speaking, there is no limit to it. It becomes very difficult to stop a teacher. And the time even does not come in the way. So I'll be very brief and I'll try to be within the time which has been given to us. At the very outset, I am grateful to Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad, and its Vice Chancellor, Professor Faizan, for inviting me to this conference and providing me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts with the distinguished experts who have come from all over the world. I, for one, does not really go out of Delhi. I think this is my second visit in last 2 years that I am moving out of Delhi, and that goes to Professor Faizan because I can't say no to him. And he was sounding all of us well in advance that you should keep these dates for this conference. I would like to compliment Nalsar University of Law for selecting this theme. I had communicated partly this to Professor Faizan also, the peace, stability, and sustainable development and the role of religion for this international event. In fact, if you look into the literature, a number of UN agencies, including the UNESCO, have been deliberating on issues like peace and sustainable development for quite some time now. A large chunk of these deliberations have taken place, interestingly, in African countries as their focus. I think this is high time that such deliberations with focus on South Asia are held in India, and that this topic has a great relevance in my estimation for this region. I had the privilege of working extensively in South and Southeast Asian countries for long 8 years based in Dhaka when I was associated with the Center on Integrated Rural Development for Asia and Pacific between 1981 and 1988. I think what I learned from that extensive experience which I gained, the region certainly qualifies for more attention in terms of peace and stability. I consider this conference as an exploration through informed scholarly discussion on the role of religion for peace and stability of this region. The conference, as you know, all of you know, that has already deliberated upon religion, business, corporate responsibility, religion and the environment, and religion and gender equality in greater detail this afternoon. I think we have, for this evening, as an important theme, the religion and the workplace. Let us be brutally frank. We talk so much, and we have seen it that even two of us do not agree on anything. How can we make others, the countries and the governments, agree on certain things? What I have learned in my international career is, what can you do rather than, making the whole world change? In a country like India, with great diversity, employers do hire their employees from a variety of religious background. And our friends who have come from abroad, we have an Article 15 in our Constitution which prohibits a state from discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex and place of birth. But in reality, number of issues arise which create a friction and at times may result into what we commonly call as discrimination on religious grounds. Let's accept it. Let's not hide under anything. It essentially implies that any person who is rejected for employment, who is fired, who is harassed in the employment because of his religion, is made to suffer unlawful religious discrimination. It's a fact. It's also, I will